Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. I'm so excited to be talking all about The Voice today with Carson Daly, who is host and producer on the
Woohoo!
show, and Audrey Morrissey, who's an executive producer. And the thing I was really fascinated about diving into at the beginning of this conversation is the conversations that you all have at the beginning of every season to really think about what are the new things and the new elements that we want to bring into this format, all the while, maintaining very true to the format that you've built because it works and that's why the show is so successful. And also how those conversations really had to evolve unnecessarily, out of your hands this year with everything going on with the pandemic and the way that that really impacted production for everybody.
Yeah, well, I can take that or at least start. We're having those conversations right now because very timely question. Because now we're starting our new season with Ariana Grande. We're very excited. So, of course, a lot of the conversation is about, how we welcome her into the fold as we do with every new coach, which is usually pretty easy because they're all fabulous and the coaches and Carson are welcoming. So that's first and foremost, making sure that comfort factor is there. But in terms of the elements, I mean, you really summed it up. After every season, we're very self-examining. We go back through the season, what worked, what didn't, what can we push forward. Carson's super vocal in that, and we really forecast what can we do better next season. And over the years, things have evolved. As you mentioned, we added a steal, we added a block, we added a save, we added in the result shows, we added so many different things to beef those up and make them exciting, which ultimately culminated in where we are now with this instant save, which is really exciting and nail biting. But people are pushing me right now. What's the new element? And you really have to be level-headed and measure. If you can come up with a great new element that makes sense, great. But don't add one just for the sake of it'll be promotable and it'll be great, and maybe we'll jump the shark and it will just not be true and authentic to the process. So we're actually contemplating that right now. I will say what was interesting with the pandemic, as much of a real heavy lift that has been grueling for everybody this past year, 18 months, it caused us to invent new things and adapt. And some of the things that we did do, everybody really loved. Audiences really loved. People really loved all the different ways that the coaches kind of connected with their new team members because they couldn't actually hug them or embrace them. And, we're probably easing up. It looks like we're going to be having a small audience for the blinds coming up. And I think the coaches will be able to hug people, but still people are saying, well, what is that crazy thing? I mean, John had that disgusting fake hand on the end of the pole. What's he going to do? Or he had this song and it's like, well, he can actually hug his team now. I don't think we're going to have the hand anymore. So I think now we're actually thinking about what lean into the fact that we will be able to hopefully connect and what funny things can we really amp that up, plus that up those moments. So I think always we're just trying to remain authentic and organic to what's really going on.
And, with that phrasing of everything being very organic and authentic, I feel like that really comes through in your presenting, Carson, and really interested in stylistically how you approach the show, because in hosting, there's so many moving parts. You're keeping the show on track. You're keeping everything moving. There's certain things that you have to hit, this beat at exactly this moment. It needs to be a 30-second thing. This is the information that you have to relay. And all the while, you're bringing your personality, you're bringing charisma, and you're bringing energy and a certain tone to the show. And so for you, how do you feel over the seasons that has really evolved for you, and how much are you still consciously thinking about the overall tone and voice for yourself as a host versus the way that it also potentially just feels very natural to you at this point?
Well, that's very nice of you to say, Mara. I mean, look, at the end of the day, they say if you love what you do, you've never worked a day in your life. So I feel that way. And I feel like, no matter what you do for a living, something that's connectable for all humans is just the sake of just being organic. Like you can't, I think transparency is an interesting thing now in society, like especially on media and through television. Like you can't fake the funk anymore. Like people see through bullshit. Like they see through, hosts who just kind of go through the motion. And I can tell you that it doesn't feel like a job, anything I do on The Voice. It is a culmination, the format itself, by the process of being part reality, part live, is like literally like if I had to design like the perfect show for me, given my background in radio, my background in, being a music fanatic or working in radio stations in the music department, or my time at MTV producing spring break programming or creating TRL, like everything, The Voice came in my life at like the perfect time, because what few skill sets I have as a presenter and producer, this was the perfect application for them all. And so, it starts with the blind auditions, which are coming up soon. And I look forward to, when a non-pandemic time, when I can be with the families. I love being with real people, because it doesn't make me feel like I'm at a TV show, when I'm talking to grandmas and dads and stepmoms and brothers and sisters and partners and husbands and wives. And that's stuff that I just love doing. I like just talking to normal people and making them feel comfortable in an otherwise not normal setting of like a TV show. And then there's the lives and the wrangling of the coaches and me working with Audrey on the timings of the live show. Yeah, I'm a traffic cop. I mean, that's all I've ever really been in my life, is a pop culture traffic cop who stood at the intersection of Times Square and said, you can go, you got to hold up. All right, now you stop, now you go. And that's kind of just, but meanwhile, hearing voices in my head and being riddled with anxiety. That's just what I do, is really more who I am than anything else. So I don't really have a style, or I just am me. And if it's good enough to stay employed, which knock on wood, it has been, that's been a blessing for me. But it allows me to be my authentic self, which is really nice to be able to do and not have to force it.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about the contestants who come onto the show, because the heart and soul of the show is really the artists and the judges. And with all of these contestants, it's a really emotional journey for them. The stakes are incredibly high for what this potentially means for the way that their life has such an opportunity to evolve. And it's a really high stress situation to step into. And they're also turning around performances at a speed, and putting together entirely new pieces in a way that they probably haven't at any other point in their lives with the teams that you have. And so I'm really, really interested in what is the behind the scenes work that goes on to really work closely in collaboration with these artists and contestants, and to help support them through navigating this entire process, because it's entirely new for everybody coming into it.
Yeah. There is an army of people behind the scenes dealing with that. And as you say, we have a big music department. We have a department that helps them choose songs. We have a department that helps with the arrangement, with the band gets very involved in that. The coaches get very involved in that. But so do the artists. Like, I think the one thing we try to do is to make sure that they feel comfortable with all the material they're performing. I mean, it really starts with that. If they can't connect with the material, they're sunk. So whether it's from the blind auditions, that very first performance where they come in, we send them the song ahead of time. They work on it before they arrive. And then when they arrive, we have a bunch of vocal coaches that work with them and really help them hone it and nail it and practice, really lay out a roadmap of exactly how it will go. And based on those rehearsals, that's really what happens. And that continues. That continues through the battles, the knockouts. And then when we get to the lives, a lot more of the staging and those things come into play. And then we have a whole other team that helps them with movement. If they're a great mover and even maybe a dancer, they'll do more of that. If they're not, we'll keep them really stationary almost and have movement around them. We really just want to bring out for them what they are, which really gets back to what we've all been talking about, the authenticity. We love it. If somebody's a guitar player, like, put on the guitar, show off that skill, lean into that. So it's really about tapping into the people, their artistry and who they are as artists. Some people are very clear on that. Some people sort of discover it on the show. So it's an exciting process. I mean, I'm just thinking of Cassidy Pope. She came in like an alt pop singer, and by the end of the season, which she won, she was a country artist on Blake's team. So it's really fascinating to watch people's journeys. But at every step, there are a lot of people supporting them.
And I love watching that evolution exactly with what you were saying, and was interested in the production elements and how they shift and evolve as you get further in the season. Because at the beginning of the show, you know, like you said, your vocal coaches, the production team, lighting, camera blocking, the number of music performances in a single show is huge, and the number of artists that you're working with. And then as it pairs down, I imagine there's more of an opportunity to get very intimate and really intricate. And a lot of the music performances feel so tailored to the artist, even when it comes down to the musical arrangement. It's not just a straight cover version of a song. And so how does that process really shift and change as you get further into the season and have the ability to put a lot more focus onto a single performance in that way?
Well, it's really a numbers game, right? For the blinds, we're prepped with close to like 85 to 90 singers that, you know, might come through, might get the chance for audition. We hope as many of them will. And so it's really about coming up with, it's just one set, there's no video element, and it's just lighting looks. I mean, that's really what you can do. And really there, let's be honest, the coaches' backs are turned. Really, all we care about is they give their best vocal performance to turn a chair. After that, with the battles, there's really not video there either. It's basically lighting, and we're trying to get them to have a successful duet. So we add a little more to that, and then it's more like blocking, them moving around each other. Knockouts, same thing. That's a song they've picked, so we try to, if they have an arrangement, an interesting arrangement to bring to it, we'll lean into that. We also do that in the blinds too. If somebody has a unique arrangement, that usually helps them stand out and can really might get a coach's attention. But once we get to the lives, usually we end up with the lives, first live show, which we call the playoffs, sometimes with 20, sometimes with 17 or 16. And obviously when the numbers get down, that's when we can really dig in. And also we also like the idea that as we go through the live shows, whether it be 3 weeks or 6 weeks, that the performances amp up every week. So and we kind of have rules, like first week, you know, no dancers. You can't have dancers, you can't have pyro or whatever, but you know, you can have like, you know, an extra player on stage with you or whatever. But as it goes, by the time it's finale, it's like pyro, confetti, gerbs, dancers, choirs, you know, string sections. And we just try to deliver as much as possible. But, you know, it's all what they can handle too. So we really try to be mindful of that. It used to be earlier on, by the time, if you made it to the end, you were doing 2 songs a week. And we started to realize the artists were just breaking down. They were just getting sick. So now we changed the elimination. So they're really only doing, sometimes they're doing 2, but usually only 1 competitive performance a show. And that's really helped. But yeah, we get into it. And I'll tell you, it's pretty interesting. The creative meetings will have all the department heads, and basically the creative team will say, okay, Cam's up. He's doing, you know, stand up this week. And like, here's our thought. Here's what we see in the screens. Here's what we see here, the lighting. They've got all reference pictures, even for makeup and wardrobe. If for a woman, like, we want her red with a red lip and like smoky eyes. I mean, they get super detailed. And here's lighting references. And it's so fascinating. And really kudos to the team, because 3 days later, we're on stage rehearsing all that. Like, they've programmed the lighting, the wardrobe people have found or made the clothes. You know, they got hair references, they grabbed wigs or whatever they've done. And the arrangement has happened. If they're dancers, they're there. And we also have our own mill. We have our own like carpentry shop and another stage. So we build our own set pieces because we don't have enough time to farm it out. So that's a really impressive machine once we get to the lives. Like, we take over all these stages, and it's really this very regimented operation for the throughput that we have to do.
And as well as their music performances, obviously, as we get further into the season, there's more of an opportunity to really give us more of their background, their backstory, to learn a little bit more about them. And Carson, I feel like you do such a fantastic job at really kind of bringing that side out of people and bringing them onto camera. So how do you feel that in hosting and having these conversations on camera with them, that your role really evolves as there's more opportunity again to have that intimacy and to really be able to pull more personality out of someone for us to see that on screen?
Well, I think it's about the journey, from the beginning when I first get them and their families and their support systems, is learning a little bit more about them. Say, tell me about yourself. What inspires you? What role did music play in your life? Was there adversity? What have you overcome? What is your character? Who are you at your essence? And if we can, and we have, to Audrey's point, we have to thank, there is such a factory around us that other producers and editors who pull this out. I may interview you, Mara, for 20 minutes, and our conversation may air on the air for maybe just 45 seconds or a minute 30, but we do a great job of getting kind of the essence of you on screen. So that starts the early process of that. Now for the viewer, hopefully they're mildly vested in these people, going from the blinds to the knockouts, and people are starting to come and go. And by the time we're whittling down, hopefully, and I do this a lot, we're in the middle part of the format, I'll remind America, like, oh, this is the youngest in the competition. This is the one that has, overcome all these trials and tribulations. And so by the time we get to the lives, we hope that not only are we delivering the best singers to American television, that we're also delivering some of the great storytelling artists that they're showing really real character and have overcome a lot of adversity to follow the pursuit of their dreams. Because that's, at the end of the day, we think what's really attractive about people who watch The Voice. As much fun as it is to watch somebody who's a good singer, it's really fun because I think people are living vicariously through these people, whether they're 16 or 56, who haven't given up on their dream. And I think we all have a secret sort of ambition inside of us. We want to be a cook, or we want to be a chef, or like this or that. And I think people watch the show voyeuristically like that. And so it's really fun for me to kind of remind the American audience of who these people are, what they stand for, and what they're overcoming, so they can root for them.
And then I wanted to talk about the judges, and Audrey, you were mentioning how, now when a new judge comes on, it feels like a fairly easy process in setting them up. But I'm very interested in what that journey has been, because obviously the first couple of seasons when judges came on board, they may not have necessarily known fully what that meant, and then I feel like the longer they stay on the show, the more you see their mentorship style really hone in and develop in the way that they work with these artists as well. And then similarly, there's a difference in the way that the contestants come in. Season 1, season 2, it was like, oh, Blake Shelton was the first album I ever bought. Of course, he's my judge. And now people are coming in and going, well, I know that this judge is going to give me this type of mentorship and that they're going to give me this type of guidance. And so there's been a real evolution on both sides in that. And so for both of you, I was interested in your perspectives on how that's really evolved over the seasons.
Well, I'll tell you, season 1, we just struck lightning in a bottle, right? It's just those 4 personalities, like nobody could predict it. I think if Adam Levine were on this call right now, he would famously say there was a dinner like the night before, 2 nights before, to like get everybody together. And he thought, Blake was, I don't know, the waiter, a hangers-on. Like, he had no idea who he was. And was like, oh, this is the fellow coach. So they obviously got along famously. And we used to do that basically in the first few seasons. Now, we don't really do that. In many cases, people already know each other. They certainly know what they're getting into. We do a big sort of orientation behind the scenes. Like, we'll go sit, like when John came on, like, I went and sat with a few other producers with his team, and he was there. It was over a lunch. And we just said, okay, here, you've seen all the episodes. We sent you all these links, but there's a lot to take in. Let's just concentrate on the blinds. Like, here's what to expect. Here's how it works. Here's all of that. And the truth is, it ends up being really fun for them. Like, it's like Carson is like, is this work? I get to sit in a big red chair with like awesome coaches to either side and listen to like great singers and decide if I'm going to press a button or not. And then if once we turn, I get to like, you know, good naturedly rib each other, like awesome. And like people bring me snacks and make sure I look great. Like what's not to love? And pre-COVID, we had this big talent compound and everybody had their own trailer and they were all in a big circle, and in the middle it was like a VIP room, TVs and the ball games on, and it's catered, and their kids and nannies and, you know, their families were there. So it was like, oh, and my kids can come and my nanny can come, and like, what's not to love? So it's really, you know, a really easy process in that. So that's really what's been happening thus far. And as far as, you know, how the artists have reacted, it's funny. I was thinking about that, you know, Cam, this past season's winner, you know, was very shrewd to pick Blake. In a way, and he even said that with you, Carson. Like that was a question and conversation you guys had, and that, you know, if he had been on somebody else's team, let's say John's, he might have slipped through the cracks. There might have been like a ton of singers like him, and he might have lost weirdly in a battle or something. But because he was on Blake's team, he really kind of stood out in many different ways, and it delivered him the win. And Blake's so supportive. I mean, that guy has won with every different genre singer. So it is interesting though. And some people I think come in with more of a strategy than others. I think some people like know exactly where they want to go because they've studied it and they know. Other people go because it's like John Kelly's their idol, you know, they can't not do it. And other people pick in the moment. I can't tell you, we ask people who they're going to go with before they get out there. Like, if all the coaches turn for you, who would you pick first? Who would you pick second? Just trying to get a sense. And I can't tell you how many times that goes out the window. They pick in the moment. So it's interesting.
And similarly, Carson, I feel like there's a real kind of evolution in the dynamic and rapport that you're able to have with the judges, especially as they stay on for more seasons or come back after a little bit of a break as well. You know, it's like watching this last season, you know that Kelly's going to be the first person to maybe enthusiastically heckle with compliments from the side. And so you two have a rapport on that. There's the humor and the banter that you have with Blake at this point. You know, do you find yourself ever consciously thinking about that dynamic and how you really want to bring that to life on screen? Or again, is it similar to the rapport that you have with the contestants where it just naturally comes to life depending on who the judges are?
Well, it's kind of like, I also work on the Today Show for NBC, and we have, a saying in the news department, obviously, you want to deliver the news, you don't want to be the news. And so it's never my intention to insert myself as any part of the voice. So I consciously try to allow the coaches to have their banter, and I know who are the stars of the show. When you drive down Sunset Boulevard, you see our 4 coaches, they are the stars of the show. And I really try to create an environment to help them rib each other. Like, oh, Blake, did you hear what Adam just said about you? Oh, that's mean, man. You're going to let that? And then I'll just kind of stir up the pot a little bit. But sure, at this point, when there's natural moments, especially with Blake, because I'm probably closest with Blake, I can't help myself, especially when we're live, and I will throw a dig in here or there. But, like Audrey said about season 1, I mean, I think, and you see it now in the landscape of reality TV, especially with producers who probably try really hard with, like, in a war room with a blackboard with celebrities' names on it, and just try and figure out like who's going to work well with who. And you just can't do it. We were just so lucky. And we've been lucky ever since, really, to bring in these different coaches that we have, benefited from greatly, and their personalities and their ribbing of one another. So we've just gotten lucky. But I'll also add, just on the format thing and the evolution of the show, going back to what Audrey was saying, it's been 10 years. So everything's changed. Not only our coaches, but, season 1 or 2 in the early days, if you looked like Blake and had turned around, came out in the blind audition and sang a country song, you'd see Christina, CeeLo, and Adam just look at Blake like, this is the cowboy. And sure enough, it would be a country guy. That's really changed. Two things have changed. Country music has changed drastically in the last 10 years. So a country star on The Voice now is influenced by all sorts of new styles of country, which lean very pop. And also we don't have, we have Kelly Clarkson now, who has dual citizenship in both pop and country vis-a-vis Texas and her relationships. So, you have Jake Hoot goes with Kelly, not Blake, and you have other people go with Blake. So I think the evolution has played well into the hands of having different coaches that can hold down different formats, and also artists who are open enough to not want to really be put in a genre lane and are really, like you said, Audrey, thinking about, all right, I might have a better protected path to the live show if I'm on Team Blake and I'm Cam Anthony, because I'll stand out. My path might be clearer there. So it's been fun to watch the strategy of the show evolve.
I mean, 10 years is no small feat in any show. And particularly when you look at the show and how you've managed to always come up with new formats and new elements to keep it feeling so fresh and very current. But for both of you, what do you feel is the aspect of this show that after 10 years still really challenges you the most every single time you step onto that set?
I don't know if it's like really, well, first of all, there's a challenge to still find great singers to come on the show. Like, I'm amazed by our casting department. Like, they find these people, and I guess that's a testament to the show. They want to come on the show, and because they want this money can't buy priceless experience of being mentored and coached by our coaches. But for me, it's not so much the challenge. It's really about, and nobody has tired of this on the team. Everybody, and coaches say this on air, they're so inspired by these young artists or young, old, whatever, that come on the show. I mean, you hear them say that all the time. I can hear Gwen saying it, like, you're inspiring me. I'm writing a new album right now. Yeah. And like, I can't believe what I'm hearing. And so I think it's really that creative exchange of this fresh talent coming in and doing their thing, and then the response by the coaches. And then behind the scenes, that same dynamic is happening. They come in, they're inspiring the vocal coaches, they're inspiring the storytellers to faithfully tell their story, they're inspiring the band, like, oh, they had this idea and I'm gonna have to stay up so much later to make that arrangement come true for them, but I'm gonna do it because I want them to have this moment. So it's more like a giddiness of, there's like a new crop of people, and it's gonna be fantastic. It's going to be grueling, but it's going to be fantastic. And so I don't know, because the format is what it is, and because I think we all treat it and respect it and are grateful for it, it's really a pleasure. As Carson said, like, we're all grateful and know we're lucky to work on such a kind-hearted, pure show, really.
And how about for you, Carson? What's the thing that still challenges you the most in hosting and producing?
Well, I'll tell you what, there's not a lot of things that keep, I think about when my parents were alive. My father was 85. There's not a lot in the American family sort of setting in a living room now where everybody comes together. And I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but especially the way that content's been spread so thin and streaming. And even my own kids now, we have a giant 80-inch television. Like, that was impressive 5 years ago. Now they just watch programming on their phone. When that, like, second screen, third screen, everything's evolved so much. And I think the challenge for us producerially is, and Audrey's right, the DNA of the show is tried and true, and we've been rewarded for it. But it's every season to try and, it's hard to be popular and really cool. Like, it's hard to do both. And so I think The Voice, what we always strive for is to be on, on NBC in prime time in front of God, grandparents, children, and everybody, and be popular and be cool. And do what we do in a meaningful way. And that's tonally a bit of a challenge because the world is evolving so much. So that's something we're always mindful of. But we, you know, Audrey and I do these interviews. The coaches are obviously, you know, ridiculously famous, and we try and articulate this in our, you know, on the air, but we're just so remiss without hammering home the fact to anybody that sees this, that if you're a fan of The Voice, you just have to acknowledge the literally hundreds of other people and departments that make it's a great, like the live shows is a Grammys every Monday night. I mean, it's a monumental, or like I came from, you know, the Video Music Awards on MTV. We that's our prom. Like it takes all year to produce the Grammys and the MTV. We do it 6 times, you know, in a row. And so there's so many people that make that possible that I don't know, they just deserve a shout out. And if we are successful every season and we found these challenges and met those challenges, we certainly haven't done it alone.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so phenomenal when you step back and realize everything that you managed to accomplish every single week in every single episode. I mean, huge congratulations on everything that you and the entire team have pulled off this season, especially with all of the constraints. And thank you so much to both of you.
Oh, thank you, Mara. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.
Great questions too.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent. Thank you.